Before the Beatles, Liverpool gave us Ronnie Wycherley, later known as Billy Fury. Despite a heart condition which caused his death in 1983, Billy clocked up 281 weeks in the UK charts with hits like Halfway to Paradise. But no one's written a proper biography of him, so we went to look for his fans and his family to try and get halfway to Billy's. Billy Fury still has thousands of fans, and one of them is Maureen Bowden. Maureen, where and when did you first see Billy?
1959, on a Larry Pons package tour on the Liverpool Empire over there.
What was his act like?
Very exciting, very dynamic act to watch. A lot of the adults at the time thought it was a little bit too dynamic, but the audience loved it.
Larry Parnes was Britain's leading pop impresario of the 50s. His nickname was Mr. Parnes, Shillings and Pence. He discovered Billy at this theatre in Birkenhead in 1958. Billy's mum and brother Albert remember how gifted young Billy was. Did you have the feeling that he was destined for big things?
I'd say so, because he was very talented. He was talented in the fact that he could draw, he could sing, he could play the piano, he could play the drums, he could play the guitar, he could play the mouth organ. And I think it was just the right time came along and he was there and he took it.
The girls used to go completely wild.
Was he very sexy?
Oh yeah, yes, he was.
Your hair, you're fine, I want you to be mine, oh, I think you're swell.
On occasion I was in front row and I threw my silver crucifix up to him and he gave me a big smile, and then this 10-foot Michelin man came over, threw me back in the seat and said, "Any more of that and you're out." These were the bouncers. They used to declare war on anyone who was adolescent, small and female. But anyway, last year Billy's mum gave me the crucifix back, the same one. She hadn't.
He'd kept it?
Yes, and she hadn't realised it was mine. She knew he'd had it a long time. So I've got it back now and I always wear it.
I think you're swell. I want to be your lover.
Heart problems slowed him down in the late 60s and 70s, but Billy repeatedly came back to do the Northern Club circuit.
I'm only halfway to paradise.
Did you have any idea that he was going to die? Did it come along suddenly?
Well, it came suddenly. I didn't think he was really going to die.
To kiss my lips.
Jean, when you turn the radio on and you hear a Billy Fury song, how do you feel?
I just sit there and listen to it.
Do you cry?
I do.
With happiness or sadness?
Both.
When was Billy's current fan club set up?
Not until after he died. There were several fan clubs in existence during the height of Billy's career, but later on there hadn't been, and it was only afterwards, due to response from fans who had still been faithful to him over the years, that the fan club was started. We have reunions in London 3 times a year. That's the nearest Sunday to Billy's birthday, anniversary, and once in the middle of October. Put flowers on his grave, tidy it up.
They just feel I've got to be there. It just like as though they can't get, now that they can't really get to Billy, the nearest they can get to Billy is through me.
He was the first genuine rock and roll star that this country ever produced. He was the only one who really had any validity. The others were watered down copies of the American artists, because rock and roll was American music. But Billy brought something of himself to it. He had a real feel for the music, and he was unique. And I think he was respected as an artist by a lot of his contemporaries, by a lot of people who recognise that in him.
Since you said goodbye, that's all that I can do with my time. I still want you so, even though you're no longer.
All right, camera's running.
Jean, what was it like? Oh, what a good start. What was Billy's childhood like, Jean?
Well, his childhood. I shouldn't say that really, should I? Start again.
All right. What was it like for you all when Billy was growing up? He was rather sickly, wasn't he?
Billy was a quite healthy baby, quite healthy until he was about 6 years of age. And then he developed this rheumatic fever.
How did that happen?
Well, I don't know. You don't hear of that thing now. I mean, they say it was some sort of a germ. But it did, you know, some people say it was tonsillitis, cause of tonsillitis. But that was it.
We think it was hereditary. I believe it's passed through the blood from generations before, and I think now you don't hear rheumatic fever at all now. It's a gone disease now.
Where was he brought up? What part of Liverpool?
He was brought up in the Dingle, the area of the Dingle. He went to Wellington Road School. But first of all, he went to St Silas when he was, you know, say from about 4.5 till he was about 11. But he lost a lot of schooling. He was always seen to be further down. You know, when he went back, he was always had to. So he went up with the other children, but he seemed to lose a lot. You know, because as I say, when he had the rheumatic fever at 6, he had a reoccurrence at 7.
When did you get interested in rock and roll?
In rock and roll, I think he went to piano lessons when he was 11, when he was really interested in music. And then he started to writing little bits of notes.
There must have been some singers who influenced him, though. Who was it that he used to listen to?
I think mainly Hank Williams and people like country and western and rockabilly type music, which was a big influence on him, I think. But about that time, you had Bill Haley was out and Buddy Holly was out, I think, and then the country became into rockabilly, and then it went into pure rock.
I mean, you were his younger brother, and he was a couple of years ahead of you. How did you see him? I mean, did you have a feeling that he was destined for big things?
I'd say so, because he was very talented. He was talented in the fact that he could draw, he could sing, he could play the piano, he could play the drums, he could play the guitar, he could play the mouth organ. And I think it was just the right time came along, and he was there, and he took it.
What about that right time? How was he discovered?
Well, how he was discovered was Larry Parnes. We wrote a letter to Larry, and we sent a photograph. He went down to the studio in Bow Street and had a nice photograph taken. He sent that off with a tape of 4 songs that he just did in one of these little cubicles he used to do then years ago, just with the guitar. And we sent that along, and of course we waited for quite a while, and then we never heard anything, so we thought, well, we write back and then ask Larry if he doesn't want them, can we have them back, that somebody else was interested. So the next thing was this letter came from Larry Parnes, an introductory letter asking him to go to the Zaldo Theatre on this certain date, that this big extravaganza show was on there, and he'd be pleased to see him. So of course Billy went with 2 of his friends, and of course he had this letter in his hand to pass on to Larry. And Larry said to him, well, he listened to him backstage, and while he was listening to him, those fans that had come to see Marty Wilde were just screaming their heads off when they heard Billy, you know, rehearsing in the backstage. So Larry said, oh, that's good, that sounds very good, to Marty Wilde. He said, what do you think of him? So Marty said, well, he is quite good. So he said, oh, I think I'm going to put this boy on. So he said to Billy, it was Ronnie then of course, and he said, what would you do if I told you to go on now? So Billy thought for a while, and he thought, well, if I say no, I think I've had it. So he said, all right then, I'll go on. And of course he literally pushed him on stage, and the curtains were closed, and Billy didn't know who he was going to face outside. And then when they opened, I mean, he just stood for a while. And then of course they just screamed to look at him, and then when he played, it was 2 of his own, you know, his own songs he wrote himself, which is Maybe Tomorrow and Margot. Well, then of course he just absolutely brought the place down. That Larry said, "Oh, well, you go home now," and he said, "Meet me at in the morning at the Lord Nelson Hotel in Lime Street, off Lime Street, and we're going from there. You're with us now. We're on tour."
How did you
So,
feel that?
well,
You were his mother. He was on with in the world of showbiz.
That's right. Well, we did when he came home. Of course, he did go with two of his friends, and when he came home, and he said to his dad, "Oh God, Dad," he said, "can I have a cigarette?" You know, because he was really, and you know, he was thrilled to be going, and we thought, well, we're thrilled for him. Although he was only just, you know, that age, going at 17, we thought it was a young age, but we thought, well, we told, we said to Larry, like, you know, we'd already phoned in between, you must look after him because he is, you know, he has had rheumatic fever. And Larry said, "Oh well, you know, we will keep in touch." And as I say, Albert went with him the next morning, and he said, "I'll phone you tomorrow night, and let you know I'm going on." Well, from there he did keep in touch all along the line, you know, how he was going on, and we didn't see him for it must have been about at least 4 months, and he finished this tour off, and he did very well. And of course, that was the first, you know, the going of it.
Albert, you went down to see him off at the Lord Nelson, your big brother.
Yeah.
How was he feeling then?
I think he's a bit nervous, but at the same time there's a lot of excitement, I think, with going on a tour coach with all them stars of the day, you know, Marty Wilde, and I think maybe Vince Egan may have been on that tour, I'm not too sure though, but he was all right.
Do you regard Billy as having become an overnight success?
I would say so, yes, because he'd gone from one day from being Ronald Wycherley, and then he went on to that tour, and he literally took over the tour because they were all going more mad for him than what they were for Marty, who was at the top of the bill. I think by the end of the tour, Billy was closing the first half. He may have started off opening the show and ended up finishing the first half. And then I think the next tour, it was like Billy and Marty then. Marty was finishing at the end of the night, Billy finishing the first half. But when the next tour again, it was the other way around, it became Billy and then Marty. So I think Marty was a bit put out, to say the least.
I mean, the tables were turned because the time came when Billy was topping the bill and Marty was way down the list.
Yeah.
Yes.
What happened when Billy went to Ireland?
I think what happened there was he was on tour with Bradley Gallagher, who was topping the bill, and I think Billy was closing the first half, and what was happening was the girls were screaming that much for Billy because by then his movements were considered at the time, I suppose, to be a bit suggestive or a bit too sexy. But what happened was Bridie Gallagher, we believe from Billy, that because Billy was going down so well, the kids were all leaving after the first half to run round to the stage door for Billy. So when Bridie Gallagher was going on, there was nobody left in the theatre. So I think she had words with the management and said, "I'm not going to carry on with this tour if he stays on this." So they used the excuse then that if Billy was any more sexy, they'd drop the curtain. And he wasn't going on to be sexy, he was doing the movements which came naturally to him for the songs that he was singing. So he went on and they dropped the curtain on him, so he got barred.
He's banned.
Yeah. Front page news.
It was a big thing about it in the paper at the time.
You've mentioned, what are your favourite songs of Billy's?
Well, I mean, being a mother, I suppose they're all favourites, you know. But Maybe Tomorrow was his first one. That was a good, you know, that is one of the favourites. But In Thought of You has a very soft spot for me.
What about you, Albert?
Me too, I like In Thought of You. It's a good song. Maybe because I sing it now and again, you know. There's also one of the later on was one called Lady, which I think if the record had been had the airplay, I think it could have been a big hit, because it is a nice song. But he just made so many songs, and if you listen to all his material, you can hear that he did have a lot of talent. But when people refer to Billy Fury, they always sort of think of Halfway to Paradise, because everybody plays Halfway to Paradise, but he had so many other songs which were equally as good.
Do you think the life of a rock and roll star was bad for him in terms of his health?
Well, I think it was, really. Because, excuse me, the tour itself was a very hard tour, because they could be in, say they could be in London one night, the next night they could be in Scotland, some part of Scotland. Then they could come all the way back down again to a part of London, and then back to Scotland again, which was, you know, wrongly done, because it would be all together. The tour, you know, the nights in London and the nights in Scotland would be a week or so, but it's just travelling all that way backwards and forwards. And I think that does, you know, tell on your health-wise. And not only that, was all the equipment they carried around with them. And then in the vans, they used to all cram in together. So I think it was really a hectic life.
I don't think Billy carried equipment really, except his guitar, because as he became more successful, he did have a road manager, you know. So he was left done to go and fetch me, carry me.
He loved horses, didn't he? And he did actually buy a farm. Was that a tranquil time in his life, do you think?
Well, he had 2 major heart operations, and he sort of went into semi-retirement after the last heart operation, which was a big heart operation. And he bought this farm. So, being a lover of animals, you know, that was good for him, really. And it was just something to do with the farm, with animals. I mean, he had a lot of dogs, and he had a lot of sheep on the farm, and he used to work quite heavy on the farm, because he used to dig lots of trenches, duck ponds and things like that.
But after that time, Jean, were you disappointed that he decided to make a comeback? Were you worried about him?
Well, we were worried about him, yes, because when I say I'm not worried about him doing the comeback, because he loved it. He really liked the life. He liked singing. He loved it. But it was just that the tour, what he was going to do, was still going to be hectic. I mean, the one that was coming up just before he died, it was after. It would have started in the February. I mean, that was for going on till about the April, May. And he would have been doing 5 nights a week, which we thought was a bit too much. His dad did happen to say to him at the time, he said, well, don't you think 4 nights is enough? He said, oh no, Dad, I can do it. You see, that was the sort of, he loved it, you know, and that was what he wanted to do. And I think coming back, he wanted to come back.
When you look back at Billy's life and his musical career, how do you feel about the way the rest of the music industry has looked at his contribution to British pop over the years?
I don't think they've looked at it too well, to be truthful. I think the music is not played enough, considering there's a lot of people out there who still love Billy Fury, who still love to hear his music, and I don't think his music gets played half as much as what it should be played. And it's going back to what I said before, it's Halfway to Paradise again, where some of Billy's LPs have got so much good material on them. If they'd play that, because there's a whole new generation of people out there now who could appreciate Billy Fury for what because he was talented in his songwriting and talented in his performing and talented in his singing. I think it could, if the radios and television would pick up a bit more instead of some of the material that you hear now. I mean, who's going to be listening to rap in 20 years' time? You just wouldn't know what you could listen to and thought you in 20 years' time say, that's Billy Fury. You listen to rap in 20 years' time and who'd know what that is?
Did you have any idea that he was going to die? Did it come along suddenly?
Well, it came suddenly. I didn't think he was really going to die. I thought, well, he'd had that last operation. You know, he would have been all right after that.
It was a shock.
But it was a shock, really, for us. And I think it was a shock to himself, really. because I think he would have, although he always had that in the back of his mind, I think making this comeback, I don't think he really thought himself it would happen. So it was a shock to us all.
If he was still alive now, would he be in the charts?
I couldn't really say. Looking at the charts, I couldn't say, because what's in the charts, that's any good. I think he'd be more into albums and things like that. You know, people like it, especially his loyal fans that he's got. He's still got them now. There's so many of them, and they're the sort of people who buy albums. I think probably he'd have been in the album charts more than the singles charts.
What about Jason Eddy? Is he ever making a comeback?
No.
Because you dabbled as well, didn't you, under that name?
I done it for quite a few years, yeah.
Were you trying to emulate your brother?
No, not at all. I just used to be me. I mean, the voice is similar.
Similar voice.
But
you go down the local and sing Billy's songs.
Oh
now,
yeah,
don't you?
yeah. I've still. But this is going back to Billy. You see, when it's in your blood, you can't. I mean, look at Frank Sinatra. He still gets up and has a go. I mean, that's with Billy. He retired for those years, but it was still there waiting to come out, and it's still in me. I still want to come out, but I've got a bad heart as well. You see, so therefore, I have to watch what I do as well.
How worried are you, knowing that you have the same symptoms as Billy had?
I don't try to worry about it too much, because worry will kill you.
You don't like to be reminded of it.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I try to put it to the back of my mind and just get on with living.
How many records did you release?
3.
I've got a royalties check for you.
Thank you. I wish somebody would give me some royalties. I could do that at the moment. But I wouldn't go back to it. I don't know. On the right day, I just don't know. I love singing.
Jean, when you turn the radio on and you hear a Billy Fury song, how do you feel?
I just sit there and listen to it.
Do you cry?
I do.
With happiness or sadness?
Both. Because I feel like it's... Well, I'm in different parts of the house, and I'm upstairs. I'll run down and just sit there. And everyone seems to have a meaning. All his songs have meanings.
And do you think to yourself, that's our Billy or that's our Ronnie?
It's our Ronnie.
Well, it's our Ronnie, isn't it?
Or our kid.
Well, that's with Albert, it's always our kid. I mean, the same with the films now. They've even got films, 2 of the films play it cool, and I've got a horse. And a lot of the fans, they couldn't get those films. They don't show them back again now. So somebody videoed it, and they've all passed one another, off. So everybody, they've seem to have it, don't they?
See, I get the impression that you don't think, in a way, he's died, because this house, for instance, is a shrine to him, isn't it? In a way.
Well,
his photograph is everywhere,
that's right,
his videos are everywhere, his records are everywhere.
Everywhere. Well, I feel that he's here. He's with us.
I don't think it's like Elvis. A lot of people, go into the music side of it. A lot of people don't think of Elvis as being gone, because when you can put a radio on and hear the music, or you can see them in clips of films and things like that, you think, are they really gone? I mean, it's hard for people to understand that when you turn radios on and you hear, say, like me, I hear my brother singing. I mean, I know he's gone, but it's hard to believe that they're gone. And when you put the television on and you see them on the television or you see them on the video, it's very hard. But you have to live with it.
He'd be 50 this year, Jean, wouldn't he?
He'd be 51 this year, on the 17th of next month. Yes.
He was born in 1940 and not 1941 as everybody was made to believe, because he wanted to keep teenagers longer in them days. Not now, it doesn't really matter age now, I don't think, or whether they're pretty or good looking or anything like that. It doesn't mean anything.
But then they
at that time, I think he wanted to keep them teenagers because they were teen idols, so they used to knock a year or 2 years off their age. And Billy was born in 1940, so they always made it out like it was 1941 to keep him that year younger. And it's still, even now, it's still going into print 1941, and I keep saying 1940.
But his first television appearance was in Strictly for the Sparrows, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He made a television.
Little-
Ted Willis.
Little stand-up appearance in the
Yeah.
corner, singing Maybe Tomorrow.
That was where introduced. Maybe Tomorrow was introduced on that. That was the theme song for the play.
Your arm aching, Ray?
Okay, we're ready, nice and quiet, and we settle. And yours.
Albert, you grew up with your kid, your Ron, and he became Billy, and he became famous. Did it change him?
I wouldn't say so, no. I think it affected him slightly with... I mean, it's got to affect people when one day you can walk down the street and you're nobody, and the next day you walk down the street and you get mobbed. So it did affect him for a while. And he was never what I'd say big-headed or anything like that. But he sort of... It must have been the excitement of becoming famous. But when he come back to Liverpool, he was always Ronnie, or our kid. I never called him Billy. It was always, all right, kiddo, or all right, Billy. Well, all right, Ronnie, sorry. But I never used Billy.
Did you think it changed, Jean? I mean, mother to son.
No.
Did you ever have to say, hey, come on now, Ronnie? It was because you're famous.
No, we
Never,
never changed
never.
at all. No. No. He used to just, be the same actually, and throw his arms round you, when
Give
we
you a
met,
hug.
and that's right. Or
Very loving.
just probably
Always
throw
give
me
you
up
a
in the
hug.
air, walk around. He'd say, oh, you're coming out, and walk, hold my hand and walk out. He's just a very lovable person. I think that's how he got his nature with animals as well. He had a very, very, very nice nature.
How would you like the rest of us, people who didn't perhaps get to meet him, how would you like us to remember Billy Fury?
Well, as I'd like you to remember him as
He's
a
very-
gentle person,
Very
a
caring.
lovable, caring person, a lover of animals, and a lover of old people too. He liked the old. My mother, and anybody her age, used to. He really liked, and children. He really liked everybody, because that film I've Got a Horse. You can see him in the shop there, a pet shop, with all the children, and he was really thrilled to bits to be with all those children. And I think everybody really, really loved him too.
Do you think people still love him?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think they do, yes,
Yeah.
because if they go through the trouble that they do to get to that cemetery, I mean, at least 3 times a year, and that's in January for his anniversary, then in April, and then again round about October. And those people come from all parts of the country. They must
all
think a
weathers as
great
well.
deal, all weathers,
They all get there and they
and I
tend the
think
grave.
that's right, and they leave the grave a mass of
Flowers.
flowers. And of course they all meet. We have a nice hall there where they all meet, and they have a nice buffet laid on, and a tea and coffee, and then they have a chat. They made quite a lot of friends with each other. It's amazing, because coming from all different parts of the world, and they're meeting, different people that love Billy the same as they do. They've all kept friendly themselves, and they want to know
It's like
what
one
have
big-
you
it's
got
like one
belonging
big
to
family.
Billy. It's like a big
Because they're all
family.
friends of ours as well, as fans.
I mean, they don't really think as me as Billy's mother. I'm just like a friend as well.
Jean.
And Jean, yes. They just feel I've got to be there. It just like as though they can't get, now that they can't really get to Billy, the nearest they can get to Billy is through me. And if it's not me, it's Albert. So they like us to be there. Whenever there's anything on, we must be there.
What will Billy be thinking looking down at all that?
Well, I think Billy will be really... I just can't explain how he will be,
I
because
think he'd be,
he'd be really
if he is up there looking down, I think he'd be very
delighted,
pleased.
very pleased to think
Because
that
not
this is
only
going on.
people still love his music, but the way they care for my mother as well.
That's right.
So many people out there, and they're really good friends. They're more like a family than fans, because they ring up, and my mum's 70 next week, and there's quite a few fans are coming down for a birthday party, you know, so we're looking forward to it. It should be good.
Well, I think you don't look a day over 60.
Oh, thank you very much.
That makes me 30. No, she looks well.
Thank you.
Right, well,
Okay.
All right, Bob?
Yes.
Yeah.